Chapter 6: Exams. 1 month before the exams, Luo Feng put almost all of his concentration into reviewing. As he took his practice exams, his confidence started increasing. I easily have a 90% chance of getting into Jiangnan's #1 military academy. This was what Luo Feng thought. June 7th marks the beginning of exams. China's exams go from June 7th to 9th, which is the same time duration as before the Grand Nirvana period. Jian Region's first high school. According to the rules, all of the exams will take place in this high school. Good luck, my daughter. No worries, Dad. Sweetie, don't pressure yourself too much. Outside of the high school's gates was a huge, dense mob made up of high school exam takers and their parents. Also standing outside the gates was a row of police holding real, loaded guns. Phone, be at ease as you take the exam. Even if you don't get into the top military academy, the runner-up is just as fine. So relax. Luo Hongguo looked at his son and laughed. Okay, Luo Feng smiled and nodded his head. Drip drip followed a loud car. The car was completely black and had the aura of an aristocrat. It was the newest sprinting S600 and had many police vehicles guarding it. As it approached the gate, the surrounding people made way for it, their gazes all focusing on that one car. The newest sprinting S600 only needed a mere 6 seconds to accelerate to 100 km per hour. Its maximum speed could reach up to 500 km per hour. Of course, this alone isn't much. The sprinting S600 is a brand carried from the Grand Nirvana period. In other words, its history is what makes it so attractive. Only 3 people came out of the car, and they happily talked with each other as they walked towards the gate. The Baldai on the left is the chief of police in our Jian region. The guy on the right is the Board of Education's head Liu. The one in the middle must be the fighter responsible for making sure the testing areas are safe. Among the people watching, there is no doubt that most of the gazes landed upon the man in the middle. Their gazes were full of respect, excitement, and curiosity. As of now, the fight between man and beast is still going on. The average person is prohibited from leaving the city's borders. However, fighters are the existence able to fight one-on-one against a beast. The entire human society is thankful towards them, thanking their hard work and contribution towards humanity. The average person naturally praises them. The fighters are the superhuman group of humanity. So that's a fighter. Luo Hongguo was also looking at that man. Every time there's an exam, the responsibility of the safety of the grounds almost always falls upon the fighters. Fighter. Luo Feng looked over. The fighter had an aura that made your heart beat faster. His eyes were like a poisonous snake in a cold forest. He didn't even smile once as he walked towards the chief of police and head Liu. He just slightly nodded his head at times. Clearly, he was too lazy to bother with them. Not too far in the future, I'll also achieve the rank of fighter. Luo Feng thought to himself. K tilde tilde K tilde tilde. The high school's large gate slowly opened. Immediately a burst of sound came out. It's time to enter. Feng, it's time to go in. Hurry and enter, Luo Hongguo said right after. Gong Xinlan also said, hurry and go. Mom will return home and make food for you. Your dad and brother will wait here until you finish your exam. Okay. Luo Feng smiled and nodded his head. Brother Luo Hua sat on his wheelchair and raised his fist. Do your best. Luo Hua said, smiling. I'll do my best. Luo Feng also raised his fist. As Luo Feng turned his head, everyone headed towards the gate and went through an inspection one by one. Inside the testing classroom, your examination certificate and ID are placed on the top right of your table for the examiner to inspect. After that, the tests were passed down. Year 2056 Jiangnan City High School Science Exam version are the clearest line at the top of the page. The first round is science. Luo Feng scanned the test in front of him until he reached the final few large problems at the end. As if he has seen them before, Luo Feng thought to himself, these problems aren't that difficult. If these aren't difficult enough, my advantage in science would be hard to demonstrate. I guess I can only focus and make sure I don't lose any points at all. Luo Feng immediately buried his head and started writing. There are 3 exams in the high school exam: science, liberal arts, and mathematics. Each exam is worth 250 points, leading to a total of 750 points possible. Science refers to physics, chemistry, and biology. Liberal arts refers to language, history, politics, and geography. Mathematics naturally refers to just math. Humanity after the Grand Nirvana period, especially during their battle with the monsters, desperately tried to advance in technology and increase their martial arts skill. Because of this, everyone realized the importance of mathematics. Anyone planning to achieve in the fields of computer science, biology, and physics needs to have a strong foundation in mathematics. So, mathematics became more important in education. Luo Feng was a bit weak in liberal arts, but had an immense advantage in mathematics. June 7th, science exams. June 8th, liberal arts exams. In a blink of an eye, it's already June 9th. Inside the testing classroom, the mathematics exam has just been passed down. All that's left is this mathematics exam. Luo Feng took in a deep breath. The science exam wasn't too hard, so I should have done pretty well on that. I also performed normally on my liberal arts exam. In other words, my grades for those 2 tests should be what I usually get. As long as I don't mess up on this mathematics exam, I can get into Jiangnan's #1 military academy for sure. I can do this. After encouraging himself, Luo Feng lowered his head and started the exam. There was absolute silence throughout the classroom. Many of the students' eyebrows started to wrinkle, which showed that the problems were quite difficult. Every year's high school mathematics exam problems are never easy, as these are the problems that pick out the people to advance humanity's technology. This is pretty hard. Even Luo Feng felt the difficulty, even harder than last year's problems. However, the harder the better. If the problems were easy, those worse than Luo Feng at math would probably be able to get around 220 points. Luo Feng would only be able to get around 230 points, so his advantage isn't really demonstrated. However, if the problems are hard, Luo Feng would probably be able to score around 210 points, while those worse than him would only be able to manage around 150 points. In this case, Luo Feng's advantage is clearly shown. Pa! A breaking sound was heard. The examiner immediately looked towards the sound's direction, but it was a student who broke his ballpoint pen in his hand. This student wrinkled his eyebrow and clenched his teeth. As he stared at his exam, it was clear that it was much too difficult. After that, he threw his broken pen aside and took out another one, continuing his exam. From the students' faces, I can tell that this year's mathematics exam is really difficult, the examiner thought to himself. Indeed, essentially every single person in the room had wrinkled eyebrows and were in deep, bitter thought. Many students were so nervous that tears started falling. Students whose mathematics ability were already poor could only think, "Can't do this problem, can't do that problem, still can't do this third problem." The students were on the verge of collapse as they looked at this kind of exam. 1 hour later, testing classroom. The time duration for the mathematics exam is 2.5 hours. At this time, Luo Feng has already finished the multiple choice and fill in the blank questions. All that's left are the calculation problems. In the mathematics exam, the multiple choice and fill in the blank problems only added up to 90 points. The calculation problems, 5 large problems, added up to 160 points. Only these types of problems were able to clearly demonstrate the student's mathematics ability. This is really difficult. I couldn't even solve 2 of the fill-in-the-blank problems. Luo Feng took in a deep breath. Below are the calculation problems. This is where the most points are. Solving just 1 more would give 30, 40 more points. Out of the 5 calculation problems, 4 of them are worth 30 points, while the last one is worth 40 points. Luo Feng was already faced with a challenge as he looked at the first calculation problem. Luo Feng kept thinking and calculating on his scrap paper. Yes, change this part by a bit, reverse that, and now wouldn't I be able to change that to the way I want? A light flashed in Luo Feng's eyes. Right. 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 If you just think about it, this problem is actually quite easy to solve. Luo Feng easily finished the entire problem in one breath and then double-checked his work. Yep, first problem done. Luo Feng looked at his watch on his left wrist and his heart jumped. The first problem took me 20 minutes. I need to pick up the pace. Luo Feng lowered his head and looked at the second problem. After looking at it for a bit, Luo Feng felt that it was easy and started calculating on his scrap paper. Not right. Luo Feng felt like he wasn't thinking in the right direction and wrinkled his eyebrow. As time passed, Luo Feng kept working at this problem. Yeah, it should be this way. But how would I prove the next proof? Luo Feng's brain was working rapidly. Hurry, 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 I can't waste too much time on this problem. How on earth can I prove this? Luo Feng nervously thought. At this time, on Luo Feng's watch, the number started rising. 120, 125, 130, 140, 150, I'm almost there. Just this proof and I can earn 30 points. How do I even solve this part? Luo Feng was getting increasingly nervous. You must manage your time wisely in tests, but each mathematics calculation problem was worth a lot of points. Every high school student that wants to score well can't miss too many of these problems. At this time, Luo Feng was too focused on his test to notice his pulse meter. 160, 170, 180, Luo Feng felt his pulse increasing, but thought that it was due to anxiety and didn't pay it much attention. Thump thump thump. Luo Feng suddenly felt like someone was pounding on his heart. His vision started getting hazy and he finally realized, what's wrong with me? Why does my heart hurt so much? Luo Feng lowered his head and looked at his pulse meter displayed on his watch. 230. This number changed the entire color of Luo Feng's face. Ever since he entered a coma at 12 and bought this watch, he has never seen his heart rate go over 180. I can't take this. Luo Feng felt as if his heart was going to beat out of his chest. His blood was surging as his heart rate increased and an indescribable amount of energy flowed into the depths of Luo Feng's brain. Pain flowed from his brain. Luo Feng couldn't hold his voice in anymore. This student, do you have a problem? The examiner ran towards Luo Feng and looked at him surprisingly. Luo Feng at this time looked like he was about to bleed. His forehead and arms' veins were bursting and even beating along with his heart. His entire body looked hideous. No, slow down, slow down. Luo Feng had a bad feeling of what was to come and was screaming in his thoughts, staring at his watch. 236, 242, 251. Thump thump thump. His heart, like a huge drum, let out waves of a low sound. His blood continuously surged. In his hazy vision, Luo Feng saw the number 268 and the pain in his head caused him to collapse. As he was losing consciousness, he heard, This student, wake up, wake up. Quick, call an ambulance. Chapter 7, exam results. Ding ding ding. The bell rapidly rang inside the Jian region's first high school. The parents who were outside the school, on the grass, or sitting on the street all stood up. The parents looked inside the school through the gates. The bustling students all left the exam area. Year 2056, Jiangnan City's high school exams are officially over. All the students have to do now is to await their results, which will be released in 1 week. Hao Bai, a balding, middle-aged man who seemed refined, was standing outside the gate, smiling towards his son. Dad Zhong Hao Bai laughed as he went towards him. "How do you do?" The middle-aged man laughed. Zhong Hao Bai shook his head and said helplessly, "I couldn't demonstrate all of my skill, but the math problems were really hard. The multiple choice, fill in the blanks, and the calculation problems all had many difficult problems, especially the calculation ones. There were 5 of them, but I could only solve 2. For the other 3, I could only do my best at solving parts of them. According to the procedure, I should still be able to receive some points for that." "Oh." Zhong Hao Bai's dad, Zhong Zilong, frowned, "So it seems like your math grade is going to be a bit low." "No problem, Dad. It was hard for everyone, not just me." Zhong Hao Bai laughed. "The math problems were all a bit harder, so I'm sure that the points required for passing will be lowered. I should be able to get into a military academy without a problem." "Oh, yeah." Zhong Zilong laughed. "Before, when we were waiting for your exam to finish, something happened. Your school's famous Luo Feng student fainted inside the exam hall an hour before the end." "Fainted in the exam hall?" Zhong Hao Bai's widened his eyes. "Dad, you mean Luo Feng?" "Yeah, that Luo Feng guy was carried away by an ambulance. Many people saw the event occur." Zhong Zilong nodded his head. "If you listen, many of the surrounding parents are telling their children of this event." "Luo Feng fainted?" Zhong Hao Bai looked around and listened closely. There were indeed many families talking about a student who fainted during testing. He also clearly heard many people mention the name Luo Feng. "Ha ha, even this penniless bum has these kinds of days." Ha ha. Zhong Hao Bai couldn't hold his laughter back. "Dad, although you don't know this person always causes trouble for me in school." Zhong Hao Bai furiously added, "He is more stronger than me and more skilled than me in everything. Even this guy has these kinds of days." Zhong Hao Bai was delighted, for his anger towards Luo Feng was immense. In truth, Luo Feng never even bothers with this Zhong Hao Bai. It's just that Zhong Hao Bai keeps treating Luo Feng as an opponent. Since Luo Feng's grades and martial art skills are all greater than his, naturally made him suffer. Ha ha, this guy has never seen the real world and was under too much psychological pressure. He couldn't handle it and collapsed. Ignore him. Go, your uncle knows your exams ended today and organized a banquet just for you. Let's go. Zhong Zilong laughed. Uncle? Zhong Hao Bai's eyes flashed. The only reason the Zhong family is able to prosper in the Jian region is thanks to his uncle, because his uncle is a fighter. No way, there is absolutely no way. Wei Wen, who just left the exam hall, panicked in front of his parents. How could Feng collapse in the exam hall? He collapsed from nervousness? Impossible. Luo Feng's psychological qualities has even been praised by the dojo of limits instructors before. Wei Wen and Luo Feng were true brothers, even if not by blood. When, there is no mistaking it. We saw this event unfold before our very eyes. That Luo Feng's father and his handicapped brother panicked in the moment and went to the hospitals. Wei Wen's father followed. Hospital? It should be the nearest one. Dad, Mom, I'm going to go check on Luo Feng. I'll eat lunch later. Without delay, Wei Wen handed his test materials to his parents and ran towards the hospital. Inside Jian Region's People's Hospital, Luo Feng was forcing a smile as he walked outside the hospital's main gate with his father and brother. At this time, Luo Honggue and Luo Hua were worried that Luo Feng wouldn't be able to handle the shock. "Dad, I'm fine. Let's go home and eat." Luo Feng seemed calm, but only regrets filled his heart. However, Luo Feng knew that the past cannot be changed, so all you can do is accept it. Feng, Feng, a sound came from far away. Luo Feng turned towards the source and saw a small shadow far away running towards the hospital's main gate. It was his good brother Wei Wen. Luo Feng was moved by the sight of Wei Wen. He ran so hastily that his shirt was drenched with sweat. "Wen, how hard were the last 3 calculation problems on the mathematics portion?" Luo Feng wasn't able to complete the last 3 problems, so if they were extremely difficult and many people couldn't do them, then his grades would still have some hope. Pretty hard. Wei Wen nodded. This year's math problems were all very hard. Out of the 5 calculation problems, the third one was a bit easier, but the other 4 were all hard. Phew, Luo Feng let out a breath. He still had a sliver of hope. At 8 p.m. on June 16th, you can check your exam grade through the phone or internet, and the dividing line asterisk will also come out too. June 16th, around 7 p.m. Luo Feng's home. Only Luo Feng was in the room that belonged to both Luo Feng and Luo Hua. He was sitting in front of his laptop and refreshing the webpage again and again. The exam results come out at 8 p.m., but usually they release it a bit earlier. "I'm afraid I can't get into Jiangnan's #1 military academy. However, I finished the multiple choice, fill in the blank, and the first 2 problems on the calculation section on the mathematics portion. Even though I didn't complete the second problem, I wrote quite a few steps, which should earn me some points." Luo Feng thought to himself, "If I'm lucky, I should be able to earn around 120 points on the mathematics portion." Luo Feng anticipated, "I performed normally on the liberal arts and science sections. If I'm lucky, I should be able to become a bachelor. If I can just reach the dividing line, I can get into the #2 military academy. Between the 2 academies, the first one is clearly better." However, a very high score is required, so Luo Feng already gave up on that. However, there is still a bit of hope left for the #2 military academy. HM. Luo Feng's eyes flashed. The exam result webpage actually displayed something new after a refresh. "God, please help me a bit and let me pass the dividing line. As long as I pass it, I can get into the #2 military academy." Luo Feng was worried and anxious. He then typed his name, ID, an examination certificate and hit the search button. Search! The laptop page flashed a bit and soon displayed a form. Student, Luo Feng. Sex, male. ID, for 261232038060832111. Examination certificate, 58786 for 3567890766. Liberal arts, 216. Science, 223. Mathematics, 118. Total, 557. Dividing line, 561. Note, in case you forgot, the dividing line is the score that separates the bachelors and specialists. For Luo Feng to get into the second highest ranked military academy, he needed to get at least the bachelor average, dividing line. Chapter 8, 2 Fighters. 557 points. The dividing line is 561 points. Luo Feng took a deep breath. Just 4 points. Just because of these 4 points, I lost my chance of going to a military academy. I can't believe 12 years of studying led to this. If I can't go to a military academy, then so be it. There's no big deal. Luo Feng focused his gaze and formed his right hand into the shape of a blade. He then made a horizontal cut into the space in front of him. Because of the hand's speed, the air violently trembled and shook. Thanks to this time's coma, my strength has greatly increased. maybe my current body fitness has reached the level required to be a fighter. I might be able to pass the prospective fighter exam. It wouldn't be a problem even if I'm off by a bit. If I just seriously and bitterly train for 1 or 2 months, I should be able to pass the prospective fighter exam. Luo Feng's adaptability ability is very high. His exam scores didn't make it to the dividing line, which shocked him. However, the coma increased his strength, which made him confident again. After all, a military academy graduate's position is far from a fighter's. Luo Feng opened the door and entered the living room. In the living room, Luo Hongwei, Gong Xinlan, and Luo Hua all turned their heads. All three of them were concerned. Gong Xinlan even stood up and walked towards Luo Feng. Feng, we can't blame you for your score. We can only blame your disease. Sai, how could this disease start acting up now? It hasn't acted up for so many years. Brother, you aren't in shock, are you? Luo Hua sat on his wheelchair, making fun on purpose. When Luo Feng was inside his room checking his grades, the rest of the family used Luo Hua's laptop to check Luo Feng's results and learned of the 4-point difference. Although they were a bit disappointed, they were more worried about Luo Feng himself. Luo Feng laughed, of course I'm not in shock. Dad, Mom, don't blame this disease. In fact, we should even be thankful. Thankful? Luo Hongwei, Gong Xinlan, and Luo Hua were all shocked. High school exams are one of the most important events of one's life. Now that Luo Feng's exams were ruined by the disease, how could anyone be grateful towards it? Dad, Mom, Hua, Luo Feng smiled a little. When I was small, I had 2 comas and fainted. In fact, after I woke up from those comas, I felt like my strength increased by a large amount and am able to run faster. This time is also the same. I feel like my fitness level is way greater than it was previously, and I estimate that I can pass the prospective fighter exam. What? Luo Hongwei, Gong Xinlan, and Luo Hua exchanged glances. Brother, are you serious? Luo Hua couldn't hold back. Of course I am. Luo Feng smiled a bit. After I pass the prospective fighter exam, I'll be able to apply for the fighter combat exam. I am quite confident in my combat abilities. I might even be able to achieve the rank of fighter this year. Luo Hongwei, Gong Xinlan, and Luo Hua were overawed by this piece of news. A fighter? What does that represent? It represents the most powerful group of humanity. It represents special privileges and rights. It represents a ton of money. It represents those at the top of the social hierarchy. And after you become a fighter, it'll bring along many benefits to your family. It is much better than becoming an elite student at a military academy. A fighter is going to come from our family. Luo Hua couldn't help yelling, "Ha ha, brother, you're awesome." Feng, great. Luo Hongwei also excitedly patted Luo Feng's shoulder. Becoming a fighter is great. Compared to a fighter, what's so good about a military academy graduate? As of now, all the fighters on Earth are praised and exalted in society. Seeing how his parents and brother were so happy, Luo Feng laughed. Dad, Mom, we can't be too happy before I actually pass the exam. An 18-year-old fighter. Luo Hua couldn't help but excitedly shout, if my brother really becomes an 18-year-old fighter, then that would be too awesome. The day after that, 5 a.m., the sky was bright. Luo Feng has just left home and was headed towards the dojo of limits. There's barely anyone here at this time. Luo Feng entered the dojo and found that the entire dojo's lawn and road had about just 100 people. There are about 30 to 40,000 members total. The dojo instructor only teaches at night, so nighttime is when there are the most people. Luo Feng headed towards the elite members building on the road. Rumble .. A low sound wave carried over. HM. Luo Feng unknowingly turned his head and saw an elegant, white race car. As it slowly entered the dojo, Luo Feng looked carefully and couldn't help but to take in a breath. Aston Martin's race car. And it's even the newest and most expensive one with the ability to fly, THR-191. His brother really loved race cars. At home, he heard Luo Hua praise this THR-191. It's an Aston Martin. It's even a 191, this one can fly. Within the dojo, the few students scattered around were all lured towards this area. This one car costs 36 million. Right at this time, the race car stopped in front of the elite members' building's gate. The door opened and a short, red-haired, clearly dyed man wearing a loose dojo practice uniform walked out. His eyes randomly scanned the surroundings. He looked right past the regular dojo students but paused slightly on Luo Feng. However, without saying anything, he entered the building. It's a fighter. Luo Feng's eyes flashed. Luo Feng could feel the pressure from the fighter's gaze. This is a gaze that has a will of steel and has experienced many fights to the death. The spacious dojo training hall was empty, not a single person was there. It was only around 5 a.m. Even at night, there usually wouldn't be more than 20 people. I want to see how much my strength has increased. Luo Feng walked over and plugged in the fist strength tester machine. After turning it on, he turned on the speed tester machine that was far away. Standing in front of the fist strength tester machine. Begin! Luo Feng took in a deep breath. He used his waist as the center, which released his power. It shot through his body like a huge python and created an explosive force through his arm. His fist was like a lightning bolt and suddenly a peng, the sound was created on the machine. Di. The fist strength tester machine let out 3 sounds consecutively. Luo Feng's eyes flashed. Usually, the machine doesn't make this kind of sound. The only time it makes this sound is under one situation. The fist strength has surpassed 1,000 kilograms. HM. Luo Feng stared at the machine's display. 1089 kilogram. So high? Luo Feng was ecstatic. The fist strength required for a fighter was 900 kilograms. His previous fist strength was 809 kilograms. And now it shot up to 1,089 kilograms, gaining 280 kilograms all of a sudden. Far more than enough to pass. Ha ha! Luo Feng excitedly punched like lightning, shaking his entire body left and right. The peng peng sounds kept going. As if blinking an eye, Luo Feng already punched around 20-something times. And the machine's display showed a bunch of numbers scrolling across: 956 kilogram, 989 kilograms, 923 kilograms, 965 kilograms. Now I'll test my speed. Luo Feng headed towards the track. As long as my speed passes, along with my naturally gifted reaction speed, which was already qualified for a fighter, then I can definitely pass the prospective fighter exam. Luo Feng adjusted his breathing. Whoosh! His body was like a cannonball, flying through the track. 4th floor of the elite members' building. A red-haired man was talking and walking side by side with a bald, middle-aged man wearing a black shirt. Yang Luo, how long has it been since our last meeting? The middle-aged man smiled slightly. Probably almost 3 years. That immature kiddo from back then became this famous. I heard this time you earned nearly 100 million. Ho ho. When I look at you, I feel like I'm old. That was all luck. The red-haired man laughed. Brother Jiang, back then. Di. A weak sound came from a lower floor, which shocked and surprised the 2 men. The fist strength tester machine downstairs is for beginners. Once 1,000 kilograms is reached, it makes this sound, the bald middle-aged man said surprisingly. There's even someone practicing here at 5 a.m. Since it's over 1,000 kilograms, could it be that young Wu? Wouldn't we know if we went down to look? Who? Who? One black shirt and one white shirt. These two people were like phantoms that flew down the staircases. In a blink of an eye, they went from the 4th floor to the 3rd floor's training hall's entrance. The black shirt-wearing, bald middle-aged man and the white shirt-wearing, red-haired man looked inside the training hall. At this time, Luo Feng was standing in front of the track and soon flew past. 28.1 meters per second. The bald middle-aged man and the red-haired man both saw the number displayed on the speed tester machine. This Luo Feng, strength over 1,000 kilograms and an incredible speed of 28.1 meters per second. The bald middle-aged man was shocked. Brother Jiang, this guy seems quite young. He seems to already have reached the fitness level required for a fighter, the red-haired man said, astonished. The bald middle-aged man nodded. Yeah, his name is Luo Feng. He is one of the more gifted students in our dojo. He just had his 18th birthday this year. 18? So young? The red-haired man's eyes flashed. At this time, Luo Feng was shocked at who he saw at the entrance. The red-haired man is the fighter who came in his race car, while the bald middle-aged man is this dojo of limits master, Xuanhuan, who has the most power and authority. According to the dojo's rules, every student calls him instructor. Instructor! Luo Feng yelled in greeting. Come here, Instructor. Xuanhuan laughed. I can't believe you're so fast. You've already reached what is required for a fighter. Let me introduce you, this is your senior, Yang Luo. Yang Luo, there's no problem with telling him your name, right? Nope. Yang Luo looked at Luo Feng and nodded. This young man has already reached the fitness requirement for a fighter at such a young age. Maybe, in the future, we'll have some sort of interaction. Xuanhuan looked towards Luo Feng and laughed. Luo Feng, since you're 18, you must have taken your high school exams, right? Ignore the results of that. What's the point of going to school? Just focus on taking the prospective fighter exam. Oh yeah, on July 1st, go to Tangyangju City's Dojo of Limits to take your prospective fighter exam. With your current strength, you'll pass easily. High school exams. Yang Luo laughed. Don't waste your time in college. You have nice talent. No matter what you do, you must put your all into it. Right now, you must put all of your concentration in martial arts. Kiddo, when you become a fighter, join our dojo of limits. You'll have a future by doing so. These two fighters all held extremely high positions. The rich and the politicians of society were nothing to them. They were looking forward to young Luo Feng joining their ranks. Chapter 9: The Rights of a Fighter. Asterisk. Different types of currencies are starting to be mentioned, so I'll write them out from now on. The ones that have been mentioned so far are Earth dollars and the Chinese dollars. Asterisk. A ping is 3.3 square meters. Yang Luo is right. Xuanhuan looked at Luo Feng and said earnestly, Luo Feng, you improve at a very fast speed. In our Jian region's dojo of limits, you are probably the quickest learner as of now. You entered my dojo of limits at the age of 16. Now you're 18 and you have already reached the boundary of a fighter. If you go to college and waste your energy there, waste 4 of your years there, then that would truly be a crime. You must know that you improve the quickest from age 16 to age 30. The older you get, the harder it gets. Xuanhuan said seriously. The 4 years of college are indeed the easiest period for a fighter to train himself. Wasting these 4 years to study, from a fighter's point of view, is indeed a big sin. Ah? Luo Feng was a bit stunned. God, it looks like my exam failure wasn't so bad after all. Luo Feng, when you officially become a fighter, how about you join my dojo of limits? Xuanhuan smiled. As long as you become a fighter for my dojo, I'll arrange a special private villa just for you. Of course, you can't sell it. You'll also have a salary of at least 20,000 Chinese dollars per month. A private villa just for me? A starting salary of 20,000 Chinese dollars. Luo Feng took a breath. 20,000 wasn't much, but a private villa was way too extravagant. As of now, China has only 6 human headquarters in total. In other words, 6 major cities. Land is extremely valuable and precious, so a villa would have an extremely high tax imposed on it. One ping in a regular home would cost tens to hundreds of thousands. This led to many people living in cheap rental homes. Regular homes are already so expensive. A ping in a villa or mansion would cost a couple $100,000 Chinese dollars. And private villas, as of now, are all restricted by countries. You can't just live in them with money alone. You must have money, power, and a special position to be able to live in one. Considering the gigantic tax, one ping in private villa would cost millions. A small private villa would be around 300 ping, which is easily 200 to 300 million. Luo Feng held his breath. Even though I'm not allowed to sell it, but for a family to live in that private villa would make being born on this world worth it. 2 or 3 billion, so what? Zhong Haobai's father, a tycoon, probably would never be able to live in a private villa like this. Luo Feng, my dojo's privileges aren't too different from the country's special forces. Xuanhuan laughed. The special forces fighters have a decent salary and special homes. The only thing they have that we don't is a killing license, which allows them to kill any regular person if the situation calls for it. Of course, they aren't allowed to just randomly kill people, for they still have report the situation to the higher-ups. Killing license. Luo Feng heard of it before, that the Special Forces fighters have the right to kill someone. However, our dojo also has special rights. If any regular person messes with you, you can report it to the dojo. After the dojo's investigators confirm the situation, they'll go through the Jiangnan Security Department and immediately bring that person away. Jiangnan laughed. If you join our dojo, you'll have money, position, everything. You can chase towards the limits of humanity all you want. The dojo of limits. Jiangnan pointed to Yang Luo beside him. This is my disciple Yang Luo, who just recently killed a monster and earned nearly 100 million Earth dollars for it. If you convert it, then that'll be around 300 million Chinese dollars. If you work hard, with your talent, I'm sure reaching his level is not impossible. Luo Feng was dumbfounded. My gosh! Just by killing one monster would net you so much money. Just what level of a monster did he kill? Luo Feng, keep working hard. You're truly talented, so don't disappoint. Jiangnan smiled and patted Luo Feng's shoulder. Kiddo, no matter what, don't relax, for I believe that you have a chance to become a warrior-level fighter. At that time, money, position, beauties. You'll have everything. Yang Luo laughed a bit. At that time, I'll be glad to go hunt some monsters with you. Ha ha! After saying that, the two fighters Jiangnan and Yang Luo laughed as they left. Luo Feng was standing in the training hall, his thoughts in a mess. No matter if it was instructor Jiangnan or the mysterious red-haired youth Yang Luo, Luo Feng could feel some sort of recklessness in their laughs and talks. Some sort of wildness. Recklessness, wildness, a smile started to emerge on Luo Feng's face. Yeah, men should be reckless on this world and create their own path. The strongest fighter on earth said before, a soldier who doesn't want to become a general is not a good soldier. A fighter who doesn't want to become the best fighter doesn't have the heart of a fighter. What's the point of living your life with your hands and feet tied? You should create a sky-shaking, earth-shattering way for yourself. 18 years old is when the value of your life starts to stabilize. After meeting instructor Jiangnan and the mysterious fighter Yang Luo, Luo Feng's thoughts completely changed. I'll do it! The strongest fighter, Hong, the second strongest Thunder Lord, created the Dojo of Limits and the Thunder Dojo, respectively. Even the 5 great countries have to treat them as equals. If they can do it, then couldn't a third person do it too? Luo Feng smiled as he walked out the training hall. Boys have dreams, so go chase them. Youth is your capital. Youth represents the infinite possibilities that the future holds. Everything depends on your own hard work. Fight. June 28th, noon, bright sky. Luo Feng and Wei Wen were walking towards the third high school. Today is graduation day, where they receive their graduation diplomas and acceptance application forms. Feng, are you sure you can pass that prospective fighter exam? Wei Wen couldn't help but to exclaim. Yep, on July 1st, I'll go to Yangzhou City's dojo of Limit's headquarters Limit Hall to take my exam. Luo Feng smiled. In front of them was school. Luo Feng looked at the schoolyard ahead of him and saw a bunch of students. As he looked, he felt like his attitude has changed. Dachem? I used to think of myself as one of them. But now, I feel like we're in two different worlds. They will go to college, work hard in their job, and have a family. But my path is different from theirs. Luo Feng and Wei Wen entered the school and split up to their respective classes. Walking in the school hallway. Brother. Luo Feng brother. A few other senior students warmly greeted Luo Feng. I heard that when Luo Feng was taking his high school exam, he fainted in the exam room. That's too bad. Fainting in the exam room. A bunch of people looking at Luo Feng from afar were discussing in a quiet voice. Luo Feng's fitness level has already reached the level of a fighter. His excellent hearing allowed him to hear every word of the students' discussions. Senior 5 class is Luo Feng's class. Luo Feng's here. Brother Luo. There were quite a few students already there, and they all warmly gave their greetings. Luo Feng laughed and nodded. Most of these old students have a decent relationship with Luo Feng, but some of them dislike Luo Feng. They act warm, but there are still some old students in a corner quietly discussing. Luo Feng's grades were so good, and he's an elite member. Who could have thought that such a thing would happen? Fainting in the exam hall. Such bad luck. This is life, who can you blame? In the past, Luo Feng was the class's most favored person. Good grades and skilled in martial arts. Now that such a thing has happened to this genius, many of the ordinary students will have a moment of happiness. Even though they are in a decent relationship with Luo Feng, humans feel happy when they see someone who was so brilliant in the past fall down. Thinking even you have these kinds of days. Handing out diplomas, handing out diplomas. And acceptance application forms. Everyone come get them. The 3 class officers held the diplomas and application forms and walked towards the podium. Wang Yin. Liu Xialong. The officers yelled everyone's names one by one and handed out the diplomas and application forms. Luo Feng. Following this sound, the entire classroom became silent. Virtually everyone's gazes landed upon Luo Feng. Everyone knew that Luo Feng fainted in his exams. All you need to know to find Luo Feng's grades is his ID and examination certificate, which aren't a secret. Students have checked his grades long ago and knew that he missed the dividing line by 4 points. Luo Feng class officer Chu Lin handed the diploma and acceptance form to him. Feng, let's go. Wei Wen was standing in front of the class entrance. Wait for me. Luo Feng easily rolled up the acceptance form and threw it into the trash. The originally loud class immediately quieted down. Every student in the class froze. This is the acceptance form you fill in after exams. Who would dare throw that away? At this time, a Hama-Q ban, a girl yelled out of shock, Luo Feng, how could you throw that away? You aren't going to fill in your acceptance form. How could Luo Feng become a specialist? I guess he's going to redo a year and take the exam again next year. Discussions and debates immediately fired up. Wei Wen, who was standing at the entrance, glared, become a specialist. Redo? You guys can figure this out. Feng is going to take the prospective fighter exam. Why take some bullshit specialist class or even redo? Don't say so much, let's go. Luo Feng pulled Wei Wen and left with him. The students all said at once, "What? Prospective fighter exam? Luo Feng's going to take the prospective fighter exam? For real? He isn't that good, is he? I guess that Wei Wen was just bluffing. Luo Feng just became an elite member last year, how could he take the prospective fighter exam this year?" Subconsciously, none of the students were willing to believe that Luo Feng has achieved the fitness level of a fighter. A fighter? That is a supernatural existence. Chapter 10: The Prospective Fighter Exam. Dad, Mom, I'm going to the city's dojo of limits, so I might not come back to eat lunch today. Luo Feng stood up after drinking a large bowl of gruel and eating 3 pieces of bread. Just wait today for my good news today. After I pass the exam, I'll call right away. Gong Xinlan laughed and then glanced at Luo Hongguo. Hongguo, did you hear that? You better have your cell phone on you at all times, or Luo Feng might not even be able to contact you. I'll be sure to bring my cell phone. Luo Hongguo laughed. Okay, I'm leaving now. Luo Feng winked at Luo Hua, who laughed and gave a thumbs up in return. Early in the morning, Luo Feng left the small southern shore region and rode the number 11 subway line to the Xuanhuan Road station and then transferred to Yangzhou city center region. After leaving the subway station, he walked for 10 minutes before arriving at Yangzhou's Dojo of Limits headquarters Limit Hall. Luo Feng left home at around 6 a.m. By the time he arrived, it was already almost 8 a.m. This is the legendary Mingyu sector. Luo Feng stood in front of the huge door in the quiet sector. This sector's name is Mingyu sector and is where the Limit Hall is located. This is the Mingyu sector, don't come close. Just at the small sector's entrance, there was a row of 6 soldiers wearing their uniforms and holding real guns and ammo. You can tell from one look at their uniforms that they aren't part of the police, but part of the army. One of the soldiers shouted, "Sir, please stand back. Once you enter the yellow-lined area, we have the right to shoot and kill you on the spot." Just like the legends, Luo Feng thought to himself in his heart. Mingyu sector in Yangzhou is where the Dojo of Limits headquarters is located. Not only is the Limit Hall here, but also many fighters' homes. According to the rumors, the people that live here are the fighters and their families. Even the police don't have the right to come in as they please. Luo Feng marveled in his heart. Everyone. Luo Feng stood at the small sector's entrance and spoke. "I am the Dojo of Limits elite member, Luo Feng. I came here today to take the prospective fighter exam. The Limit Hall holds the prospective fighter exam on the first day of every month." "Oh." From the guardsman's lounge an old, bald man walked out with a computer in his hand. "Young man, you came quite early, it isn't even 8 a.m. yet. Taking the prospective fighter exam at such a young age, your future is limitless. Okay, let me check your ID and elite member ID." Luo Feng handed them over. Beep! A message came up on the computer's display after scanning the identifications. 18 years old. This old, bald man looked at Luo Feng in shock and then laughed. Brave enough to take the prospective fighter exam at 18 years old. Not bad, I hope you pass it today. Thank you, sir, Luo Feng replied. Let him in. The old, bald man waved his hand. The small sector's electronic door opened automatically. At this time, a soldier holding an assault rifle stepped forward and followed Luo Feng. "Sir, I will bring you to the Dojo of Limits. After you enter the sector, please do not run around. You only have the right to enter the Limit Hall and not the fighters' homes. If you break this rule, even if I don't make a move, the people patrolling the area will." This soldier even sneered at Luo Feng while telling him this. Of course, Luo Feng slightly smiled and nodded, but was surprised inside. There indeed was a cooperative relationship between the country and the Dojo of Limits. At least the core of the dojo of limits will be heavily protected and guarded. Wow, every building is a private villa. Luo Feng looked around. Except for the center of the sector, which was the large, tall limit hall tower, everywhere else was a private villa. Between the villas were fake mountains, pools, and lawns. Minyu sector, inside the limit hall. Right when Luo Feng stepped inside the lobby of the limit hall, the soldier went back. "Sir, are you here to take the prospective fighter exam?" Inside the hall, a beautiful young woman smiled. "Sir, please sit over there. When it's 10 a.m., take the exam with the others." Luo Feng nodded and towards the side of the lobby. There was a small bar there with a waiter and a bartender. Luo Feng scanned the spots and saw that there were already 3 people sitting at the bar. 2 of them were having a discussion while the other one was sitting silently on a sofa. Look at all of those villas. That is the benefit you get from joining the dojo of limits as a fighter. A young man wearing white shirt and pants said, "As long as you become a fighter and join the dojo of limits, you'll get a free villa and you'll be able to live here. Hey, look at this environment, it's so comfortable." Of course, the fighter sector is different from all the other sectors outside. "Look, a new person is coming." The 3 people saw Luo Feng. Luo Feng slightly nodded and sat on the sofa at the side. Nobody knew each other, so there wasn't any exchange of talk. As time passed, 3 more people came, which Luo Feng recognized none of. However, from their looks, the 3 of them were a bit older, probably all over 30 years old. One of them was even over 40 years old. "Ha, Luo Feng," a loud sound came up. Luo Feng, startled, turned his head and looked, and saw a lean man with a face full of hideous scars walking towards him. "You're coming to take the prospective fighter exam too?" "Brother Yang." Luo Feng stood up and greeted him. "It's a bit embarrassing. I came to try last month, but sadly my speed was only 24.9 meters per second. It was off by just that one bit," Yang Wu said helplessly. In fact, Yang Wu passed a long time ago in fist strength and reaction speed. It's just that speed is his weak point. However, starting from this year, Yang Wu's speed started improving. 24.9 meters and 25 meters isn't really a big difference. If everything goes well, he might get a grade of 25 meters per second. "I'm sure you can pass this time, brother Yang." Luo Feng laughed. "This guy named Yang tried so many times already and never passed. I bet this time you'll fail too." A loud sound came from the side. Luo Feng looked over and the one talking was a buff man with a full beard. Yang Wu immediately glared. "The guy named Tong, you dare talk about me? Didn't you take the test and fail twice already? With your reaction speed, I guess you'll need at least another 2 or 3 more years of training." Silence. A cold sound came from the center of the lobby. The 8 people currently there all turned their heads and saw a middle-aged man wearing a dojo uniform. "Let's go, everyone, follow me upstairs and take the exam. Remember, behave yourself once you're upstairs. Our old friends from Yangzhou City's headquarters came over today, so don't cause trouble." Yes, no matter if it was the arrogant full beard, Yang Wu, or Luo Feng, everyone listened and followed. Headquarters old friend. Luo Feng couldn't help but start guessing in his heart. Know this, Yangzhou City has 12 dojo of limits and the limit hall. Each sector's dojo of limits masters are called instructors. The master of the limit hall is called the chief instructor. After entering the elevator, the loose uniform-wearing middle-aged man pressed 6. DI. The elevator arrived at the 6th floor. Hua! The elevator door opened and what came into sight was a gigantic training hall with around a dozen people inside. Luo Feng recognized one of them to be Instructor Jiang Nian. "They're here, stop chatting," the middle-aged man with loose, long hair spoke, and all of them looked at Luo Feng's group. When facing their glares, Luo Feng's group tensed up. They knew, that those who appear inside the limit hall, other than the service personnel, are fighters. In other words, all of these people are fighters. Since this is the headquarters of the dojo of limits in Yangzhou City. Get ready for examination, the middle-aged man with loose, long hair commanded. Luo Feng has seen this man before on the internet. He is the master of the limit hall, Yangzhou City's chief instructor, Wu Tong. Come one by one and give me your IDs. The fighter who led Luo Feng's group up here took their IDs and handed them over to chief instructor Wu Tong and laughed. Boss, there's quite a few people today. There's 8 of them. Yep, Wu Tong randomly picked out an ID and scanned it on the machine next to him. A crystal-like display that was almost transparent shot out from the machine and displayed a large amount of personal information. First one, Tong Guan, the chief instructor, was indifferent. Begin your fist strength test. Even those of you who came out of the army come to my limit hall to test. Interesting. Luo Feng, who was listening on the side, couldn't help but smile. The dojo of limits was created by the strongest fighter on earth. The dojos are scattered all around the world and their examinations have high credibility. Your examination results will receive recognition in every area in every country on earth. Even the army or traditional martial artists like to come to the dojo of limits to take the exam. Test your fist strength, the chief instructor commanded. Yes. The full-bearded man immediately took a step forward. With his left hand in front of his face and eyes wide opened, his right fist flew through an arc and hit against the large machine, which only shaked a little bit. The machine's display immediately displayed the number 986 kilogram. Pass. Next, Luo Feng, the chief instructor, randomly chose the second ID and scanned it on the machine. He read through the descriptive personal information and couldn't help but to be shocked. 18 years old? Old Jiang, this is your Xian sections, right? Since when did such a talented young man appear? Heart instructor Jiang Nian on the side couldn't help but to laugh. We still don't know if he is truly skilled in the group of fighters at the side. A fat veteran scoffed. He might not know what he's dealing with and has no strength. Instructor Jiang Nian glared. What, jealous? Your northern section doesn't have any sort of genius like this. Luo Feng, show them my Xian section's members' strength. Yes, instructor Luo Feng stepped up and headed towards the fist strength tester machine. Want to keep listening? Find the full novel on Arcwave at arcwave.app. Clean audio chapters and your progress saved across devices.